Hey Freedom Family, my name is John Deblot, founder of Diaspora Freedom Initiative, and this is Your Freedom Live. And this is Your Freedom in Kenya. It is episode 1, so let's put it where the goats can get at it and talk about relocation, right? We have 3 primary client bases. We have folks who are interested in offshore generational wealth and creating generational wealth for the first time for their families. We have folks who are interested in bringing businesses overseas and offshore and creating either manufacturing supply chains or just bringing their businesses to another market. And we have folks that are focused on relocation. Our relocatees have historically been the largest arm of our business. However, recently, the generational wealth folks have been catching up. All right, so we're going to start with relocation because that's going to speak to the most amount of people. And our next episode is going to be on generational wealth. So if that's what you're looking for, just keep your eyes peeled for the very next episode. All right, so relocation. How exactly does that thing work? Well, Nairobi is a luxury relocation city. It is what a lot of people would argue the most affordable of the luxury relocations. All right, it is not a discount relocation. All right, it's not Colombia, it's not the Philippines, it's not a discount location. So if that's what you guys are looking for, Nairobi is not your place. However, Nairobi is not the only place in Kenya. Our firm actually does the least relocation to Nairobi. Most of our clients are relocating to the beach where we happen to live. Some of them are relocating up country and in country. We have a lot of agricultural relocatees that are looking for full-on farms. We have a lot of retirees that are looking to stay at the beach. And so a very small percentage, less than 1% of our relocatees go to the city of Nairobi. So there's that. There are other options for you out there. All right, there are 3 ways that people typically relocate. The newest way is the digital nomad. Most folks who come to us for a digital nomad have tried to get a digital nomad before and have been denied by the government. So they end up spending twice as much money to try and get a digital nomad permit. Now, digital nomad permits are brand new and it keeps changing. You know, how to get them keeps changing. It keeps changing so much that we're not even going to give you a breakdown of how to do that here because by the time you see it, it might be different. All right, so our lawyers will handle it for you if you want it handled, but that's how the digital nomad permit works as far as right now. This is only the first year. It's the first calendar year. This is the second year that it's been in effect. It was in effect 2025. Now we're in 2026, but it has not been 12 months yet, right? So it's brand new. All right, so digital nomad off to the side. The other 2 are typically in Class K ordinary residency permit. Unfortunately, people insist on calling this thing a retirement visa. It is not a visa at all. Visas only gain you entry into the country. That's all a visa does. And if you have an old 5-year visa, your visa is still valid. However, Kenya has moved away from visas. All right, they've joined the modern world with the electronic authority, so the ETA, the Electronic Travel Authority, or authorization, depending on which country you're dealing with, right? And so that's what they have. They have an ETA, Electronic Travel Authorization. They don't have visas anymore. ETAs are very quick and very easy to get them in about 72 hours. And so once you get here, in order to be able to live here and or work here, you need a permit, not a visa. Doesn't matter if it's a business visa, doesn't matter what kind of visa it is. In order to operate here legally, and you need a permit. All right, so if you're going to be permanent, you need a permit. If you're here on vacation, you're here on vacation. All you need is that entry authorization, whether it be an ETA or a visa. But if you are here permanently, you need a permit. Okay, the permit is going to give you the actual authority to do whatever it is that you want to do in this country. Each permit gives you a little bit different authority. So the Class K ordinary residency permit, the reason why it's the one that most people choose is because it's a direct path to citizenship. Most folks are looking for dual citizenship. It takes 7 years. So they need to not waste time in that endeavor and start as soon as possible, right? So that that clock starts ticking as soon as possible, okay? The ordinary residency permit does not come with working authorization, okay? So you're not expected to work here. In what we would consider like a W-2 style job, you can buy shares, you can have investments, you can have passive income coming in, you can have a company that's paying you dividends from, you know, wherever home is, back home, all of that stuff. But you're not supposed to have any active income happening here inside of Kenya while you are on the Class K permit. All right. So, though that's the trade-off. You can't work while you're here, but you also on a path to dual citizenship. The next way that people do it is called a Class G permit, right? Class G permit is an investor permit. An investor permit is not for buying stocks and bonds. An investor permit is for creating a company. You still cannot get a W-2 style job with an investor's permit. You're supposed to own a company and be doing, you know, work for that company and maybe getting paid from that company. And you can take a paycheck, like a salary, like a W-2 style, you know, salary from that company if you wish, but you need to be the owner of the company with the Class G permit. If you get a work permit, that is not something that you can do. Someone who is trying to tell you that you can do it is essentially trying to guide you in defrauding the government. You cannot open your own company and then sponsor your own work permit. Not in this country. That's the right way to do it in places like China. So there are countries where that is the right way to do it. This is not one of them, right? So your work permit needs to be sponsored by a Kenyan company, and that Kenyan company is going to spend more money than you spend for a Class G permit to convince the government that the job that you're doing can't be done by a Kenyan. There's also typically a requirement that you have an apprentice who learns that job so that, you know, the next time there is a Kenyan who can do that job, right? So it's set up pretty decently to make sure that people aren't taking jobs away from Kenyans. All right, so that is how the Class G permit works. Now, the differences between the two, one glaring difference is for a Class K permit, you have to be at least 35 years old, 35 or older, right? Not 65 for all those people who are so stuck on calling it a retirement permit. Not 65, 35, okay? It is not a retirement permit. Retirees, however, typically qualify, right? So when you have somebody who maybe doesn't have a law firm behind them like we do, and, you know, maybe they're just like a coach, like a relocation coach or something like that, and so they want the easy way out. They want everyone who comes to them to be a retiree, right? So that there's not a whole lot of work to do, and so hopefully they don't run into a brick wall. They typically still do, right? We know that because they then come to our law firm and either need to sue the person who screwed them up or need to get it done the right way because they were denied. But that is the easier path, is if the person is retired. It is definitely easier to kind of push them through, you know, the process based on their retirement. However, that is not what the permit is designed for exclusively. It is not a retirement permit. Okay, it's just an ordinary residency permit, just like it says. When you get to the end of that, when you get to the 7 years, you can apply for dual citizenship. You can apply for permanent residency, right? Permanent residency means that you do not have to renew your permit anymore. You are permanently a resident, right? But you are not a citizen. You are still a foreigner in a foreign land, and if some kind of rules change, you can be kicked out. Once you get dual citizenship, you are a citizen. You have a Kenyan permit, and it's dual. You don't have to give up any other citizenships like they would force you to do in Tanzania or the Philippines, right? So you keep your old citizenship and you get the next citizenship as well. You get the Kenyan citizenship as well. And at that point, you're a citizen. You can't be kicked out, right? So people focus on dual citizenship. Class K permit is their best option. The other options are one of your parents is a Kenyan citizen. You would think that that would be the best option, but if there was not a birth notification to the Kenyan consulate when you were born, that becomes a tricky situation that our lawyers have to deal with. Beyond that, the other way is to be married to a Kenyan for 7 years. But if that Kenyan divorces you at 6 years, your clock just started all over, right? So even our folks that are married to Kenyans, they typically still carry a Class K permit in case anything goes wrong with that marriage. They don't lose their time. Their time just is used by the permit instead of the marriage, right? But the marriage is another way to do it. All 7 years though, except for, of course, if your parents are Kenyan. But marriage and Class K permit, still 7 years, okay? Now, on the Class G side, at the end of 7 years, you can apply for permanent residence. And it's going to be easier to get at the end of 7 years. For people who are exceptional and hiring a lot of Kenyan citizens and all of that stuff, you may be able to apply at the end of 3 years and see if they accept you. But you have a much better chance of getting accepted as a permanent resident at the end of 7. You could apply for dual citizenship, but it is an uphill battle. That is not a direct path to dual citizenship, all right? So you can make the fight, but you're probably going to get denied probably 1 or 2 times before they even take the application seriously, quite frankly. Okay. All right. So how does it work? Okay. We typically pre-qualify people. That can happen pretty easily since we have an assessment site. So people who go to our website, they can just take an assessment. The assessment will tell them. The assessment does err on the side of caution, right? So it errs on the side of, if you're on the fence, I'm just going to say you're not ready, right? So one of our people always reviews the assessments. Even I review some assessments daily. So you'll get an email from one of our freedom facilitators, one of the lawyers, or me, explaining the assessment and explaining what's going on and giving you some value as far as what it's going to take to get ready. Beyond that, if you are ready, then you can move into our consultation. We make sure everything's a good fit. We go forward from there. All right. And then it's a bunch of internal steps until we get to the end where the permit has been issued. And then within 30 days, the issuance fee has to be paid. The issuance fee on every permit is 250,000 or 250,000 Kenyan shillings per year. All of the permits that we go after are max permits, right? So we always write out the application in such a way that we're shooting for a max permit. So what ends up happening is like you get your Class K permit, just the issuance fee on a Class K permit is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of, as the Forex exchange rate is currently, it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,900. It's just for the issuance fee, right? Doesn't have nothing to do with the application fee, all the other fees, the legal fees, biometric fees, foreigner certificate, all of that. None of that. That's just for the issuance fee, right? So that gives you like a glimpse into what this really costs, right? Some folks, if you're hearing folks quote you prices that are less than $5,900 for a max Class K permit, that means that they are not paying the issuance fee. So when that permit comes out, and we'll do that too, like, if somebody just wants to pay, all of the fees and the application fees and all of that, and the surety bond and everything like that, and then they'll kind of go pay the issuance fee when it happens, that's okay. But you have 30 days to pay the issuance fee. At the end of the 30 days, the government will rescind your approval and it will become a denial and you'll have to start all over again. So that's the way that works, right? So there are some folks who are like, all right, I'm going to be here in 3 months, should be approved by then. Let me know if it gets approved early and I'll just wire the money. Otherwise, I'd like to just go into KCB, which is the bank where you would pay it at, KCB Bank, and I'll just pay the issuance fee myself. No problem, right? But if you screw that up and you lose your permit, that is absolutely on you. We are indemnified in the service agreement if you choose not to pay the full amount up front and then you miss your window on paying that issuance fee. It happens all the time, right? Some people just hard-headed, essentially. Happens all the time. That is not on us, all right? So if you only want to pay the first half of the fee and then come in later and the second half you do it on your own, more power to you. Just make sure you make it on time. All right, there's no way to pay it online, or no reliable way to pay it online anyway. And so you want to be here and walk into KCB and go ahead and pay it and get a very special pink receipt. You will see a pink receipt that has some information blurred out from us, so you know exactly what that receipt looks like. It'll say e-citizen or immigration on it, and then we will upload that receipt to make sure that they acknowledge that you have paid the issuance fee, and then your e-permit comes out. Right. So now you technically have a permit. You're good to go, kind of. Right. So now you have the permit. The next thing that we do is our legal team meets up with you and walks you into immigration, right? So they're there with you, and they walk you through the process of getting the endorsement, right? It's the endorsement that's really going to allow you to move back and forth like a citizen almost, right? You'll be able to enter and leave the country as much as you want while you have the permit, okay? Once the permit expires, it's like you never had it again. Way easier to renew than to let it expire and start over again. Plus, your time stops when it expires. So if you're trying to get your 7 years, you need to make sure you're on your renewals. All right. Then what you're going to look at doing is after you get the endorsement, which is going to be in your passport. So if your passport only has 2 years left on it, right, that's fine. You need 6 months in order to travel. So your passport's definitely valid. However, we would recommend that you just go ahead and apply for a lost passport, right? Just lost or stolen passport, get a new one, get another 10 years, right? Because 10 years is more than 7. You want the endorsement that they put in your passport, you want that there till you get dual citizenship. You want all the endorsements, all the stamps, all of that stuff in the same passport. Because when you go to your interview for your dual citizenship, they're going to look at the passport. When did you first enter the country? When did you first get your permit? Where's the endorsement? What's the date on it? Okay. When's the next? When did you renew? Where's the endorsement? What's the date on that? Okay, you didn't let it expire. They're going to go through all of that, and they're going to make sure that everything is everything inside the passport. So what you don't want to do is have the first endorsement in a passport with a completely different number than the number that you did your application with, right? Because your passport number is in the application. You get a new passport, you get a new passport number. So what you don't want to do is have that glitch there, because it's just a hiccup. Remember, no one has the right to have a citizenship in anyone's country. So if the investigator, right, or that immigration agent just decides, like, you know what, this thing is there's too much, I think it's suspicious, they just use their discretion. Same as an American, immigration officer. When you're coming in the country, they can just turn you around, even though you got a B1, B2 visa. You know what? I'm not granting you entry. And it says right there on the visa, this visa does not guarantee that you will be granted entry, right, into the United States. And it works the same with any other country. So the immigration officers anywhere have discretion to just be like, you know what? I don't like the way this feels. Come back next time, reapply. All right, so you don't want, here's 3 passports. And they're like, what's going on here? Because here's one, and then here's another one, but I lost that one at one point in time, so I had to get another one. But half of the stamps are in this one, the other half are in that one, and there's some in this one. You want to make this thing as clean as possible. That's why the people who plan the best have the best results, right? So if you look at your passport, you're like, I ain't got 2 years left on this. I know I'm in for a 7-year journey. Let me just go ahead and get a new passport, get a new 10 years, right? And then start this process knowing that in 7 years, I'm going to have the same passport with all the evidence throughout this passport, okay? So that's not a requirement. That's a trick of the trade, okay? That's why all of our people who have gone for dual citizenship, not a single one of them have been denied. We walk in there with all the evidence, and just slam it on the desk. There's no trick questions that can get them caught up. There's none of that. There's just a perfect trail of evidence as to everything they've given to the country, all the jobs they've created, all the people who are going to lose their jobs if you don't grant them the dual citizenship and they have to leave the country. All of that. It's all boom right there, for the immigration department to see.
And they typically get processed in and out of there super duper quick, right? So they're in and out in like 15, 20 minutes, and then that's it. Then they're going for their citizenship. So that's what you want. You want clean processes and procedures, right? Again, this is not a discount destination. Not everybody qualifies financially to be here, right? So for your Class K, you have to be able to show at least $24,000 a year, right? And that $24,000 has to come to you in very kind of particular ways. However, a lot of people qualify and don't realize they qualify, right? So don't get too afraid of how that money has to come to you. That's just a matter of people having experience versus people not having experience, right? So there are ways that we can work on that. Those are questions for consultations and internal discussions. We're not going to get into strategy here. And then on the investor side, there's no monetary requirement as to how much you make, but you do have to put 100,000 US dollars or its equivalent in a Kenya bank account. You don't have to pay that to anybody. You don't lose that money. It's still your money, but it's a put up or shut up tactic. It's, you say you're a business person, you say you're here to give people jobs, or is this some fly by the seat of your pants thing? Is this some LLC you made in your mama's basement? What is this? Is it real business or not? It's real business, and let's see the money. Put $100,000 in an account. Let's see that you can do your runway, your payroll, that you can buy an office, that you can, pay for lawyers, that you can pay for tax professionals and all of that. Let's put up or shut up, right? And so if you can't put up, they're not giving you an investor permit, because what they don't want is you show up with hopes and dreams, hire a bunch of Kenyans for 30 days and then throw them all out on the unemployment line. They need to see that you have some runway, that you can open up a business and lose money for a year and still keep it open, because typically that's the kind of stuff it takes in entrepreneurship. I've run many a business where we lost money for the first 3 years before, then we broke even for another year, and then we started making money in year 5, right? So if you understand real business and you've been a real business person in the past, and you know that there needs to be a runway there for you to have any kind of legitimate chance at making that business work, right? And that there's unexpected expenses that are going to pop up, right? And so you're aware of all of that. And so this is how they make sure that you're not some, person with an LLC on paper talking about, you got a business and you want a business permit. No, you got to show them the money. Put that money up or keep it moving, right? So again, you don't lose the money. It's just proof that you are what you say you are, right? And it's solid in the sense that the prohibitive pricing associated with the permitting makes sure that you're getting quality value add individuals coming here legally, right? The folks who come here illegally are typically the opposite of that. They're typically not adding value. They're typically causing problems. They're disrupting the social harmony and all of that type of stuff. And so what they've done here is like, look, man, we don't need y'all to come here. It's not like that, right? But if you want to come here, then you need to give something to society, right? There needs to be a net positive of you being here, or what's the point, right? So I like the way that Kenya has set that up. If that rubs you the wrong way, this probably isn't the place for you. If you get it and you're like, oh, cool, like-minded people, I can build with people there. I'm not going to be running into people who are all hopes and dreams and manifestation and like dragging down actual brick and mortar movement. You're going to fit in beautifully out here. So that is your high level overview of immigration, right? That is how you relocate, and on the immigration side of relocating. Now we'll talk a bit about housing. We are Diaspora Freedom Initiative. We want to give you freedom from all of the nonsense, including mortgages, including electric bills, including water bills, including sewer bills, including taxes, right? We want you to be free of all of it. So we do not focus very often on apartments. They do come up, right? There are some people who like really, really need them. And there are some folks that in their relocation package, they have an apartment for a certain amount of time while we build their house. That makes a lot of sense. So it does come up from time to time. And then we have those stopgap programs where you spend 10 months in an apartment while your home is being built. But typically we build people houses, right? Now, not everybody can do that. Not everybody necessarily wants to do that, whatever the case may be. But for us, we typically focus on building folks' houses. And we don't do what's called service like plots or anything like that. That's like an HOA. Again, freedom. We don't want you paying rent for a house that you've already bought. So all the apartments, condos, service plots, there is a payment that, goes in perpetuity essentially. Right? So, and sometimes depending on how the service agreement was set up, you have no say as to what the payment is. Again, very similar to like HOAs, right? Sometimes you do, like sometimes there's a share in the management company that's deeded to every unit, and it's stuck to the title deed, right? So my mind slips me on the name of that. It's a covenant. It's a covenant on the title deed, right? So it can't go anywhere. Like you can't like sell the house but not sell the share in the management company or anything like that. So the people who live there do get a vote in what happens, but that still doesn't mean that you get to decide individually what those prices are going to be. So they can just keep going up every 2 years. You're paying more and more and more for the same house. That's nonsensical in our opinion, right? So for us, we typically build people houses. Those houses have no mortgages on them. Those houses have their own biodigester, so there's no sewer bill. Those houses typically have their own borehole, so there's no water bill. Those houses can have a solar upgrade, so there's no electric bill. So there's a lot of our clients that the only bills they have are internet and Netflix. That's it. They don't have any other bills, right? And depending on where that property is, they may not even have a tax liability, right? So there might not even be property taxes. That's freedom, right? So that's what Diaspora Freedom Initiative is all about. So our clients are typically ready to build, right? They want to build a new house. We have our own architectural firm. We have our own general contractor. We have vertical integration on all of that, right? So that's the last side of the relocation, where you're going to live, right? But now how are you going to get around? It depends on what package you get into with us, but all of our packages are all inclusive. The tiers just give more. So at the highest tier, not only do we convert your driver's license to a Kenyan driver's license, but we also buy you a brand new car. Right now, the best one we have has a 7-year, 200,000 kilometer warranty on it, right? So you get a full-on warranty, brand new car, brand new house. You own everything. Your insurance on the car is paid for the first year, all of that great stuff. So it's full relocation. You got everything you need ready to rock, right? We build most of our houses by the beach here on the coast. However, we've built in Kisi, we've built in Nakuru, we've built in Kisumu, we've built in Kiambu, we've built in Kakamega, we've built in Meru, we've built in Embu. So we can build it anywhere. However, most of our folks are by the beach. All right. So we've touched on the immigration. We've touched on the relocation. We've touched a little bit on the lifestyle, and we're almost here at about our 30-minute mark. We try to keep these, kind of pillar shows to about 30 minutes each, 30 to 45 minutes, where we just cover the one topic, and then we move on to the next one later. So, I'm John Develot, founder of Diaspora Freedom Initiative. This has been your relocation show, breaking down everything to do with relocation and moving forward from there. For a Class C permit, Class K permit, those come in at about $12,000 to get that done. The nomad permit, if you qualify, that one we have to really see if you qualify. You have to go back and forth between the embassy of the country you come from to make it happen. It's a little more complicated than the other permits, but it's also shorter, right? And doesn't really have a direct path to anything because you're supposed to be a nomad. You're supposed to leave, right? So the nomad permit is a bit cheaper. It's about $8,500. And we can process that out. Go to the website, take the assessment, see what's going on with that. The biggest bang for the bucks are not the immigration packages, they're the total packages. So when you get your land, your house built by us, maybe you upgrade to solar only and all of that stuff. When you get that full-on package, you get a brand new car, you get all your documentation turned over, you have private security at your property, you have your maid is also included in that. So the first year of your maid service is included in those packages. So those are full-on relocation where everything is done. You get here, you get to your house, you don't have to do nothing, right? Those are where your biggest bang for your buck are. And those tear off, they start at about 185,000. Now, the biggest, most beautiful version of our packages, the one that is not going to be around for long, the one that we're going to have an entire episode on by itself, but I need to say this in closing, is that the bond rates in this country are amazing right now. We had a bond that was paying out double the S&P 500, right? They're incredible because right now the country is going from tier 2 to tier 1, right? So it's an emerging market that's almost fully developed. It's going from emerging to developed, right? And so like we're building a nuclear power plant right now. It's slated to be built and all of that, right? So it's going there. Because of that, all of those public works things, the brand new international airport, the nuclear power plant, the hydro plant, all of those things that are coming take money. And so because of that, the bond rates, the ROI on bonds is crazy, right? Every single bond that came out last year, the ROI was greater than the S&P 500 historical average, right? And so because of that, we have been able to do bond ladders for clients where the clients come in and buy 6 strategic bonds. Bonds in Kenya pay out every 6 months. So these 6 strategic bonds give you 12 payments. How many months are there in the year? 12 months in the year, right? So every month, the government is paying back this bond, right? And the maturities on these bonds are 10, 15, even 20 years, right? So what ends up happening is you end up being able to relocate. After you relocate, you end up seeing yourself in a situation where you're getting these payments from the government for the next 10 years because you loaned them your money at the end of the term of the loan, which is what a bond is. It's just a loan going the other way where you're the bank. So at the end of the loan, which is called the maturity of the bond, they give you the money back, right? So you get the money back, and for the last 10 years, you've been living on those interest payments, those loan payments that they're paying you as the bank. So we have figured out the formula of what number do we need to hit for people to be able to move to Diani and not work for the next 10 years and just live on those bond payments for the next 10 years, right? So that is definitely the big boy package where you can come in, get everything you need wrapped up into one, and start getting payments kicked out to you from the government that cover all of your living expenses, right, for the next however many years. We have some folks that are on bond ladders that are 20 years long. So the next 20 years, they don't have to worry about, any payments or anything like that as far as covering their lifestyle. So it gives you what? Who are we? Diaspora Freedom Initiative. It gives you freedom. That's always our focus, right? So it allows you to literally move here and be free day one. Don't got to work ever again, right? You got those 10 or 15 or 20 years of payments coming in, but if you do that right, you shouldn't have to work ever again, right? And so that is what we offer and what we do, and that covers relocation, and we will see you next time.